Whole cities built centuries too early. Stones shaped with a precision no one can fully explain. A metropolis so vast it hid in plain sight until the earth itself revealed its outline. These aren't legends or lost tales. They're real civilizations. Worlds that rose where they shouldn't have and left behind ruins that refused to fit into the timelines we thought were fixed. For thousands of years they were pressed down under mud, jungle and silence. But piece by piece the ground has begun to give them back. Tonight, we uncover 7 ancient civilizations that challenge everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. This is RiddleMeThis Mysteries, where history refuses to behave. What if Europe's first true sailors didn't come from the warm harbors of the Mediterranean or the later shipyards of the Nordic world, but from the muddy banks of the Humber around 2000 BCE? What if, long before written history touched Britain, a coastline of quiet settlements hid a maritime culture capable of open sea travel, a civilization that shouldn't exist yet clearly did? North Ferriby had been occupied since the Neolithic, with communities living along the estuary from roughly 4000 to 3000 BCE. But the mystery begins in the early Bronze Age, between 2030 and 1680 BCE, when something astonishing appeared in the river mud: the remains of 3 large plank-built boats, crafted centuries before such technology was supposed to reach Britain. Dendrochronology, the tree ring dating used across European archaeology, confirms their age with precision. Ferriby boats 1, 2 and 3 belong squarely to this period, making them the oldest seagoing boats ever discovered in Europe. Not dugouts carved from single logs, but true ships. Heat-bent oak planks shaped to interlock, cleats carved directly into the wood, wedges hammered to tighten the seams, and yew-lashings threaded through carefully placed holes. These were vessels designed with confidence, as if the builders were working from a tradition that had existed long before the boats themselves. Each boat may have stretched up to 16 meters in length, capable of carrying a dozen crew members and more than a ton of cargo. Modern reconstructions, including digital models tested in 2022 and 2023, show that they weren't confined to estuaries. Their hulls offered the buoyancy, flexibility and speed needed for real seafaring, with some tests suggesting they could reach 8 to 10 knots. If true, then Britain's Bronze Age shore wasn't isolated at all. It was connected, and the archaeological record supports this. From 1800 to 1400 BCE, long before the Iron Age, Britain shows evidence of wide-reaching exchange. Baltic amber, continental ornaments and materials from distant regions all converge near the Humber. Isotope studies reveal individuals buried in Britain who spent their childhoods across the North Sea. Someone, or something, was crossing open water long before conventional history allows it. But this raises a deeper question. Where is the infrastructure that should accompany ships like these? A plank-built vessel requires skilled carpenters, seasoning yards, forest management for oak timber, rope-making traditions, and communities who understood tides, winds, and the behavior of coastal waters. Yet no shipyard has been uncovered. No workshop, no written evidence of the maritime knowledge these boats imply. It's as though we are looking at the remains of a system that operated for generations, yet left only its most durable artifacts behind. And that is the true paradox of Ferriby. The technology arrives suddenly, fully realized, without prototypes or earlier stages. It belongs to a society that clearly mastered long-distance coordination, but whose material traces are faint and scattered. A people who understood more about the sea than their age should have allowed, and who worked with tools sophisticated enough to produce vessels that modern shipwrights still study. Ferriby forces us to reconsider the idea of isolation in Bronze Age Britain. It hints at a maritime world that connected coastlines, carried goods, and carried stories. A world that flickers into view only through fragments of oak buried in the mud. But if Britain's hidden sailors challenge what early Europeans could accomplish, the next place reveals an even older puzzle. What do you do with a stone too heavy to move, too massive to lift, and too large for any machine of its age to control? At Baalbek, someone didn't run from that problem. They solved it, long before history says such engineering should have been possible. The plateau had been occupied since at least 9000 BCE, but the mystery begins much later, in the heart of the late Bronze Age. Between 2000 and 1000 BCE, long before Rome existed, an unknown culture began shaping a foundation unlike anything in the ancient Near East. At the base of the future Temple of Jupiter, centuries before the Romans raised their columns, 3 stones were fitted into place with almost surgical precision. Each block of the Trilithon weighs close to 1,000 tons. Each sits 6 meters above ground level, and each was placed by builders who left no names, no texts, nothing but the architecture of an ambition far ahead of its time. Even the journey to the platform defies explanation. The nearby quarry, used across multiple phases of Baalbek's history, contains stones larger still. The stone of the pregnant woman, measuring over 1,000 tons, the stone of the south, around 1,200, and in 2014 archaeologists uncovered the Forgotten Stone, weighing nearly 1,700 tons, the largest hewn stone ever found. All 3 were abandoned where they were carved, suggesting plans far beyond anything the later world attempted. Yet some stones did make it to the platform. How? No ramp has been found. No heavy lifting machinery existed in the 2nd millennium BCE capable of controlling such mass. Wooden rollers would have shattered. Roman cranes, introduced over 1,000 years later, in the 1st century CE, could lift only a fraction of the weight. Even the largest combined lifting systems of the 2nd century CE, when the Romans completed their colossal temple above, reached no more than 100 to 150 tons, far below what the Trilithon demands. And still, the podium stands intact. Recent geotechnical studies published between 2022 and 2024 reveal that the bedrock beneath the megaliths was leveled with extraordinary care, more precise than many Roman platforms. Quarry marks connect the workmanship to traditions spanning vast distances, hinting at craft networks active long before the site became the Roman colony of Heliopolis around the 1st century CE. By the time the Romans finished the Great Temple of Jupiter in the 2nd century CE, much of the older platform had already endured a millennium or more. Even earthquakes, frequent across the Bekaa Valley, have failed to shift it. The higher Roman courses have cracked, fallen, and been rebuilt. The older stones remain unmoved. Baalbek whispers the same quiet contradiction we hear across the ancient world. The deeper you go, the more advanced the engineering becomes. A platform built between 2000 and 1000 BCE should not surpass the precision of a temple completed 1,000 years later. And yet here it does. It forces us to consider a possibility no text preserves, that a complex, skilled and coordinated society existed here long before Rome, one capable of solutions we still cannot fully reconstruct. A civilization remembered only through stones far too large to ignore. But while Baalbek confronts us with impossible engineering, the next place hides something older still. How do you build a civilization that controls rivers, 2,000 years before China ever recorded its first engineer? That question hangs over Liangzhu, a city of jade, canals and rulers that rose around 3300 BCE and vanished 1,000 years later, leaving nothing but silence beneath the wetlands of the Yangtze Delta. When archaeologists first uncovered its earthen walls in the 20th century, the scale felt impossible. A 300-hectare walled capital, palatial terraces, elite tombs, workshops for jade, lacquer, stone and pottery. A city planned with the confidence of a kingdom, not a Neolithic village. But Liangzhu had no writing system, no surviving chronicles, no dynastic record to explain how such a world appeared so early. It simply emerged, fully formed, as if from the river itself. And the river was the key. Across the landscape, stretching for kilometers, they began finding dams. At first a few, then dozens. Only recently, with satellite imaging and AI analysis in 2025, researchers identified something astonishing: 132 ancient dams, forming one of the earliest large-scale water management systems ever built. Some stood 40 to 60 meters wide, layered with compacted sediments, gravel and clay. Others linked natural lakes into reservoirs, creating a network that controlled floods, irrigated fields and fed canals running directly into the capital. This engineering belonged to a later age, yet it was here in 3000 to 2500 BCE, built by people using tools simple enough to fit in the palm of a hand. Recent excavations uncovered 20 more dams, 7 dating firmly to 5,000 years ago. Taken together, the system stretches across at least 10 kilometers, with water gates, levees, and a hydrological logic that suggests surveyors, planners, and a central authority strong enough to mobilize thousands. Liangzhu wasn't just early, it was organized, stable, and deeply hierarchical. Inside elite tombs at Fanshan, jade revealed the city's inner world. Polished Kong, hollow squares with circular cores whose meaning remains unread. Perfect bead discs laid on the bodies of the ruling class. Ritual axes and figurines carved from stone brought from over 100 kilometers away, identified by 2024 provenance analysis. These were not mere ornaments. They were symbols of power, spiritual authority, and a worldview we can see but still cannot decipher. And then came something stranger. A 2025 nature study revealed that canals and moats around the city held worked human bones, shaped, modified, and placed deliberately. They date to the same period as the hydraulic system, perhaps offerings, perhaps rituals tied to water, fertility, or protection. Whatever they meant, they point to a society that fused engineering and religion so tightly that both rose and fell together. Because Liangzhu did fall, suddenly. Around 2300 BCE, thick layers of silt bury the city in a sequence of catastrophic megafloods. Geological cores show repeated disasters sweeping across the delta. The very rivers they controlled became the force that erased them. No slow decline, no transition, just water and silence. For millennia, the wetlands hid the remains. Only in the last century did the city reappear, and only in the last 5 years have we begun to grasp its scale. A Neolithic civilization that mastered water long before history expected it, built monuments before writing, and vanished before anyone recorded its name. From the drowned jade city of the Yangtze, we move to another world unearthed by accident. A kingdom whose treasures surfaced only after a flood exposed secrets it had kept for millennia. There are cities whose kings carved their names into stone, but Jiroft left only symbols and silence. That silence broke in 2001, when a sudden flood along Iran's Halil River split open the earth and revealed something no one expected. Carved vessels, stone tablets, and artifacts lying just beneath the surface, untouched since the Bronze Age. What emerged wasn't a handful of scattered objects, but the outline of a civilization lost for 4,000 years. And almost immediately, the greatest mystery rose into view. Signs etched on tablets and chlorite slabs that no scholar can read. Some symbols echo the Proto-Elamite script of early Iran. Others resemble pictograms, mountains reduced to strokes, serpents simplified to lines, plants abstracted to symbols. But in 2023 to 2025, renewed analysis of these inscriptions showed something more startling. Some may date as early as the 4th millennium BCE, making them contemporaries of, or possibly even earlier than, the first attempts at writing in Mesopotamia. Digital scans in 2024 revealed repeated patterns and structured arrangements. A 2025 study added another layer. Certain incised objects appear tied to standardized weights, hinting at early accounting or economic notation. Yet no one can say for certain whether these marks form a true script or a code used by priests, scribes, or rulers whose names have vanished. The civilization behind them was anything but simple. Between 3000 and 2200 BCE, Jiroft flourished as a center of monumental mud-brick architecture. Raised platforms, multi-room buildings, and ceremonial complexes that dominated the Halil River Valley. In workshops, artisans carved dark green chlorite into vessels that have no parallel. Scenes of eagle-headed beings, serpent-bodied gods, temples, mountains, and mythic hybrids. These objects spread across the ancient world, found as far as Mesopotamia and Central Asia. Yet their origin point, unmistakably, is here. Recent discoveries include a deep red cosmetic sealed inside a carved chlorite vial, and a new set of Jiroft artifacts now added to Iran's National Heritage List, pieces whose iconography remains uncatalogued and mysterious. Each discovery expands the same quiet truth. This was an early civilization with an aesthetic, economy, and religious structure developed far beyond what textbooks once allowed for the Bronze Age. What makes Jiroft most enigmatic is how suddenly it rises in the archaeological record. There is no slow build-up, no long chain of predecessors. A mature artistic style appears fully formed. Monumental architecture appears without visible prototypes. Long-distance trade networks connect this valley to distant cultures, yet Jiroft stands apart from all of them. And then, around 2200 BCE, everything ends. The Halil River shifts its course. Climate disruptions sweep the region. Some layers show fire, others abandonment. Workshops fall silent, platforms crumble. The symbols that may have recorded its history stop abruptly, and with them the voices of a kingdom that still has no known name. For centuries the valley kept its secret. Only a flood in our own time revealed that another flood, thousands of years earlier, had already buried a civilization advanced enough to carve its beliefs into stone, yet distant enough that we still cannot understand them. From this kingdom of undeciphered symbols, we move to a structure even more unexpected, not in Iran but in Europe, a stepped monument that resembles a pyramid. How do you explain a step pyramid in Europe? A monument with no ancestors and no descendants. On the island of Sardinia, far from the great kingdoms of the Near East, rises a structure that has no place in European prehistory. Monte appears suddenly on the archaeological map around the first half of the 4th millennium BCE, centuries before the pyramids of Egypt, and long before written history would reach this part of the Mediterranean. From a distance, it looks like a ziggurat transported across the sea. Up close, it becomes even stranger. The earliest phase, built around 4000 to 3500 BCE by the Ozieri culture, was a massive trapezoidal platform with a long sloping ramp more than 40 meters in length. Nothing else in Europe from this age includes such an architectural feature. The platform stood apart from settlements. This was not a home nor a fortress. It was a place designed for ceremony, for ritual, for gatherings whose meaning is now lost. Then, centuries later, something dramatic happened. During the 3rd millennium BCE, under the Abialzu Filigosa and Monte Claro cultures, the platform was rebuilt, raised higher, reshaped into stepped terraces. The ramp was strengthened, the edges reinforced, and new standing stones were set around its base. Archaeologists see this not as simple renovation, but as an ideological shift, a deliberate transformation from one sacred vision to another. A second monument built atop the memory of the first. Radiocarbon studies published in 2023 confirm this two-stage story, tightening the timeline and revealing a long-lasting ritual tradition spanning more than 1,000 years. And around the structure, excavations uncovered the traces of what happened here. Ritual pits, burn marks, and large deposits of animal bones, evidence of repeated feasting and ceremonial gatherings. This was not a quiet shrine. It was a place where the community came together, where offerings were made, perhaps to gods now forgotten. At the base of the pyramid lies a massive boulder, a perfectly smoothed, altar-like stone placed with intention. Some call it an omphalos, a navel stone, anchoring the structure to the cosmos. Others see it as a sacrificial altar. Its purpose remains unknown, but its presence is unmistakably sacred. Modern technology is only deepening the mystery. In 2024, detailed photogrammetry and 3D reconstruction revealed hidden tool marks and internal layering, confirming that the second building phase wasn't an expansion. It was a complete conceptual redesign. The ramp, walls, and terraces were engineered carefully, in stages with a clear plan. And astronomical analyses reassessed in 2024 suggest alignments with solstice and equinox events, though the debate continues. Even so, the possibility that Monte was built as a cosmic stage, a place where sky and earth met, is difficult to ignore. But the greatest puzzle is its isolation. There is no other structure like this anywhere in Europe. No earlier prototypes, no later imitations. A ritual pyramid with a ceremonial ramp appears once, and never again. UNESCO's 2025 documentation describes it as the only known monumental structure of its type in the entire Mediterranean basin. Its origins have been debated for decades, but whether through distant inspiration or parallel invention, no direct link to ziggurats has ever been proven. And then, around 2000 BCE, the ceremonies stop. The terrace falls silent. The ramp gathers wind-blown sand. The sacred stone remains where it was placed, untouched but unused. Later, cultures build elsewhere. Monte is abandoned, not destroyed, simply left behind as if whatever purpose it served had come to an end. A pyramid that appears suddenly, a cult place with no recorded gods, a structure that should not exist in the place where it stands. From this lone monument on a Mediterranean island, we turn to a city that hid itself so well it remained invisible until the sky revealed it. It took lasers fired from the sky to reveal a city the forest had hidden for half a millennium. Beneath the lava-shaped highlands of Michoacán lies Angamuco, a metropolis built by the Purépecha, the only civilization the Aztecs failed to conquer. Yet for centuries after its abandonment around the early 16th century CE, not a single record mentioned it. No chronicler named it, no map showed it, and from ground level nothing hinted at the vast city buried beneath the trees. Then, in 2007, LiDAR swept across the region and the forest dissolved. What emerged was a city so large it challenged everything archaeologists thought they knew about Mesoamerican urbanism. More than 40,000 structures appeared in the scan. Terraces, temples, plazas, residential compounds, causeways and ceremonial platforms stretching across over 26 square kilometers, a landscape the size of Manhattan, hidden in plain sight. Angamuco did not form around a single ceremonial core, as Tenochtitlan or Teotihuacan did. Instead, LiDAR revealed 8 separate pyramid districts, each with its own plazas and ritual platforms. A city designed as a constellation of sacred centers. The earliest occupation dates to around 900 to 1200 CE, but the city reached its peak under the Purépecha Empire between 1200 and 1530 CE, an empire with metalworking obsidian industries and a military strong enough to halt Aztec expansion. The ground itself shaped its growth. The city was built directly on a lava flow from the Michoacán, Guanajuato volcanic field, a chaotic terrain of ridges, voids, and basalt corridors. A 2025 geological study showed that the city's layout mirrors the hardened lava beneath it. Instead of leveling the land, its builders embraced the raw topography, weaving temples and plazas into natural channels carved by fire. And then there are the roads. A detailed analysis of the LiDAR data mapped thousands of pedestrian pathways. Straight lines, diagonal cuts, and winding routes adapted perfectly to the lava landscape. These were not simple footpaths. They formed a coordinated network linking ritual districts, residential clusters, and agricultural terraces. Movement itself was designed, engineered to guide people from one sacred zone to another. Refined visualizations of the LiDAR model sharpened the picture even further. High-resolution reconstructions revealed multi-phase construction on temple platforms, plaster layers, stair alterations, and expansions that hint at centuries of ritual activity. Excavations confirm offerings placed at key plazas, ceramics, obsidian blades, traces of fire rituals, and signs of water symbolism tied to the volcanic earth beneath the city. Yet the silence around Angamuco is absolute. The Purépecha did not leave written records of its name, its rulers, or its fall. Even its true function remains unclear. Was it a royal residence? A pilgrimage center? An unrecorded capital? What is certain is that sometime after the Spanish arrival around 1530 CE, the city emptied. The forest returned. Lava ridges swallowed its paths, and for 500 years, Angamuco vanished. A metropolis larger than many ancient capitals, erased so completely that only a beam of light from the sky could bring it back. From a city hidden beneath volcanic stone, we turn to another civilization that disappeared without warning. A Maya capital with no pyramids, no towering temples and no warning signs, just wealth, water, and a silence that came all at once. Cancuén rises in the archaeological record around 300 to 400 CE, at a place where the Pasión River narrows and becomes easy to control. Here, at the entrance to the highlands, the Maya built a city unlike any other, a kingdom defined not by height but by reach. Its power came from movement, the trade routes that carried obsidian, jade, pyrite, seashells and textiles across the Petén and into the heart of the Maya world. By the 7th-9th centuries CE, under rulers like Taj Chan-ak, Cancuén reached its peak. Instead of pyramids, the city built outward. Courtyards, causeways, docks, warehouses, workshops, and one monumental achievement, a palace of more than 200 rooms, one of the largest palatial complexes ever constructed by the Maya. It was a world of corridors and courtyards, administrative offices and reception halls, meeting places for alliances and trade negotiations rather than sites for massive public ritual. Recent research is revealing just how specialized this city was. A 2024 functional study of flint drills shows Cancuén's workshops were producing goods from some of the hardest materials in the Maya world, drilling, shaping, and polishing jade, obsidian, and pyrite. Another 2024 study highlights the production of iron ore mirrors, luxury items associated with elite identity and long-distance exchange. Cancuén was not just a node in the network. It was a workshop capital, a place where raw materials were transformed into prestige. This makes its absence of large temples even stranger. The city's religion lived in smaller shrines, household altars and ritual installations woven into palace spaces. Cancuén's identity was political rather than monumental, a capital built on diplomacy, logistics, and control of the river. But every advantage was fragile. By the late 8th century CE, climate stress and regional wars destabilized the trade routes that fed the city. Cancuén's wealth depended on navigable waters, on safe caravans, on political alliances between highland and lowland powers. When conflict erupted between larger kingdoms, Cancuén found itself at the crossroads and exposed. The end came suddenly. Excavations between 2005 and 2010 uncovered the remains of nobles, attendants, and royal family members dumped into palace reservoirs and drainage channels. Some still wore jade ornaments, others lay beneath collapsed passageways where they had fallen. Among them was likely Khan Mashul II, the last known ruler. There are no signs of ritual burial, no offerings, no recovery. This was execution, not ceremony, the decapitation of a kingdom in a single violent moment. After that day, Cancuén was abandoned. No later dynasty reclaimed it. No successor city rose on its foundations. Its name disappears from Maya inscriptions, as if the kingdom had never existed at all. Even its monuments lie scattered. Cancuén's Stela I survives only as fractured pieces, broken long ago, photographed in different collections, its full form still incomplete. Archaeologists have spent decades trying to reunite its story from fragments that no longer share the same home. A kingdom once whole, now recoverable only in pieces. And so Cancuén ends not with decline but with erasure. A Maya capital that built a palace instead of temples, mastered trade instead of conquest, and vanished so completely that its story had to be rebuilt from the bones of a single, terrible day. Across these 7 places, one pattern returns. The ancient world was never predictable. Civilizations rose in places they shouldn't, built monuments no one expected, and vanished in ways we still struggle to explain. The ground beneath us is filled with stories that refuse to follow the rules. Reminders that history is far larger and far stranger than the records we kept. And somewhere out there, more of these impossible worlds are still waiting to be found. If one of them still lingers in your mind, let it travel, like the video. Subscribe if you haven't. Share the silence. The story continues, only here, on Riddle Me This Mysteries.